Yes, I should be. Good Lord, what is happening in there?
Horrors will be gone in 10th. Horrors will be gone in 10th edition, in summer, so buffs will be localized entirely within a unit.
Yes.
That's it?
No.
With a new edition comes new worries. Will the game be easy to learn? But will it be then easy to break? Well, today I'm introducing a rule that should stop some game-breaking tactics and be easy to learn. The character rules are changing for 10th edition, and if you haven't been playing since 2nd edition, these rules might seem quite drastic. They should be easier to understand than character rules in the current 9th edition, and I will explain why. If you just got nice and settled in 9th edition, 10th edition should be an improvement and easy to adapt to and learn, especially with help from YouTubers like me. There are several changes to cover, but the main one I'm going to talk about first is that most characters now join units in the deployment phase and stick with that unit for the entire game. Only the unit that they join benefit from their leader abilities. In 9th edition this would be things like rerolling ones to hit, but in 10th edition there will be far fewer rerolls. If the change is so drastic, why is the change even necessary? In 9th edition, but more especially 8th edition, players exploited character auras and built entire army blocks, known as castles, around a couple of characters, giving bonuses or rerolls to their entire army. Games Workshop has admitted that balancing this has been difficult for them. In 8th and 9th edition there were a lot of rules and changed rules to how you can shoot characters. There were penalties or restrictions to shooting characters, and the long list of seeming contradictions could be difficult for new players. Basically, you can only shoot at a character if they are the closest enemy unit, otherwise all normal shooting rules apply. If they are not the closest, you can shoot them unless they have a unit within 3 inches of them. However, ignore that if the unit that they are within 3 inches of is an infantry unit with 1 or 2 models. But do not apply this exception if the unit has the bodyguard rule. Okay? I did that deliberately without visual aids because that is how the rulebook and FAQs have it. Just words. You can see why it was confusing and why they want to change it. How it is changing is to be closer, but most definitely not, exactly like the independent character rule. Prior to this, in editions 3 through to 7, characters joined squads, and there were independent character rules about them entering and leaving units, joining other units, and when they could leave units. It wasn't too difficult, and it came over from Warhammer Fantasy. But the independent character rule was still considered part of the extended rules and not suitable for your first few games. It was designed to stop characters getting shot early in the game before they had done anything cool. This new rule designed for characters in 10th edition is similar to this 3 to 7th edition rule, but with one major change. The unit you join in deployment cannot leave. So your character support benefits are only fixed for that unit. With only a few exceptions, you can only have 1 character per unit. So this will prevent a problem that occurred at the end of 7th edition, where you could have multiple Space Marine heroes leading a large pack of, say, Fenrisian wolves that were heavily buffed and near impossible to remove. So Death Star units, that is, a unit which is absurdly powerful and your army is focused around, can be prevented. We also have a list of which units the leader can join, so you won't see the Dark Angels Chapter Master leading Fenrisian wolves. Characters are split into 2 groups, Leader and Lone Operatives. The leaders can join units, and to stay alive they will probably have to. Otherwise, if they are alone, it looks like they can be shot at just like any other unit. Just because you are not in a unit does not mean you become a lone operative. More on that rule and what it does in a second. The only units that have been given that rule are characters that would not suit supporting a regular infantry unit because they support vehicles. So this is character units like Tech Priest and Tech Marines. They only get lone operative rules when near a vehicle. That is how I read it anyway. What are lone operatives? Lone operatives are the character units that do go alone. This is units like the Imperial Assassins. It's a great improvement and much easier to understand than the Lookout Sir rule that I explained a bit earlier. Lone operative means the character cannot be shot at if they are more than 12 inches away from the unit that wants to shoot them. Easy. Another great thing about 10th edition to add to the list. It stops the checklist of if and or unless that I read out before, and makes sense that you can't pinpoint one person far away over on the other side of the battlefield. Another benefit of this is taking out yet another part of that if and or rules that I missed out. Yes, there was more to that rule. That was the number of wounds that the character has. Large monster characters could still be shot. Now it is easy to understand. Do they have the lone operative rule? Otherwise, they can be shot like any other unit. Easy. Great. Another element that this rule will interact with is how terrain in line of sight works. Currently, line of sight is another terribly worded rule. The line of sight rule basically says, check if you have line of sight. If you have line of sight, you have line of sight. We might have to draw a 1mm line from the base of your firing model to the base of an enemy model, and it is only allowed to pass through friendly models in the firing unit and terrain like barricades. That would be pretty simple and work in most cases. Problem then is base sizes matter. The way bases keep changing with each new unit released, that could get very annoying. I haven't rebased most of my Space Marines or Chaos Marines, and I don't envy someone with hundreds of Orcs or Tyranid Gaunts, when Gaunts inevitably get a 28.5mm base. Please, I am begging you, advocate for base size amnesty. What other possibilities are there for the character change? Don't expect 4 to 6 wounds on the support leader character anymore. It may return to the 2 or 3 wounds to discourage players from leaving heroes on their own. Other characters like Demon Princes and Lone Operatives will probably be unaffected. The increase in wounds to 8th edition was put there to stop them dying casually from a bolt gunshot or dying instantly from the perils of the war, if they were a psychic. That was a problem at the end of 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy. You had to be very sure a power was worth casting, or you might just explode for nothing. Heroes cannot tank hits for their bodyguard. The bodyguard has to die before the leader goes down. This stops other Death Star issues of having one hero take all of the shots that would otherwise immediately kill their support unit. As you may expect, there is an exception to this. Things with the sniper rule, now called precision. This is something that Tyranids can have across their entire army when they're facing against an army that's going to be character heavy. Armies like Battle Sisters and Genestealer Co. This allows you to target characters even when they still have bodyguard units left. Annoyingly, the Primaris Lieutenant rule they've shown off is called Tactical Precision, but it doesn't give this precision rule, it gives lethal hits. Wording, Games Workshop, come on, I thought you were trying to make this easy for us. How will army selection change? For this part, I'm not thinking about rules, just how players' minds change. I expect to see chaplains and similar units taken more often. They were very popular in early editions to make a combat unit a lot better, and now that there are shooting prayers, chaplains can come back. They became less popular in 8th and 9th edition because their prayers could only support one unit and then only on a 3+. That was obviously inferior to a captain or lieutenant whose aura was always on, always worked, and could affect multiple units. This change is also bad for characters on bikes. We have this part of the leader datasheet that specifies which units they can join. This Infantry Primaris Lieutenant can only join Infantry Primaris units wearing the same armor as him. So having a Space Wolf captain on a bike will probably be only able to join other bike squads. That is, if they keep a datasheet for a model that they aren't selling anymore. Same thing happened to Chaos Biker Lords and to Jump Pack Chaos Lords. If other armies can continue having Jump Pack leaders, they will probably only be able to stay with other Jump Pack units. Considering the rumours of a merging of all types of Space Marine and the removal of Primaris keyword, the Phobos Lieutenant was just announced as a Lieutenant, not a Phobos Primaris Lieutenant. Terminators can be either kind, and there were rumours that this would mean that the Primaris Space Marines could get into a Rhino. We are seeing that specific rumour of any kind of Space Marine being able to get into any kind of Space Marine vehicle, as Games Workshop teased. Why shouldn't aggressors get to ride in a Land Raider? However, for characters, if we look at this, the quite specifically named Primaris Lieutenant only join specific Primaris units. So rather than generally merging the two kinds of Marines, Primaris and Firstborn, they may remain quite far apart. That would suck a bit. I have a new Primaris Phobos Librarian that I've shown off on my YouTube community tab, but I have no other Phobos models. He would have to go alone, if that's even an option, or I proxy him as a regular librarian. I'll be interested to see how this affects Imperial Guard, as the lieutenants for the Imperial Guard in the platoon command squad are separate to the Castellans, act like captains. Castellans can still join squads, whereas platoon command squads look like a squad in themselves, unless they separate the platoon command squad and the lieutenant as they've done before in 8th edition, and then have it so the lieutenant only join the platoon command squad. Possible. We know that there will still be some auras, just not commonly. Most auras are going, not all. Perhaps the flag of the platoon command squad will still give an aura of some kind, while the main purpose of the squad is to facilitate the army special rule of orders. Another tactical player thought: one way to counter Space Marines in 10th edition is to use multiple small units. This way their Oath of the Moment will be less effective. So a G-Steel Occult Horde with lots of small Acolyte units would be very effective against Space Marines. However, that means that any leaders you have will only be leading small squads, and fewer of your models will get their powerful benefits. It'll be interesting to see how players choose to balance that. We haven't seen what a pure combat character will be like, something like the Master of Executions for the Chaos Marines. They may be a lone operative, or they may be an extra killy part of a squad, the squad acting as their bodyguard. But the support elements of heroes are looking quite nice. Speaking of heroes, we have Dante as a new model with new rules for the outgoing 9th edition, all free online. He has an Inferno pistol. We know why he has an Inferno pistol, but they won't call it an Inferno pistol, because having rules for Dante's Inferno would apparently be too on the nose. This is from the same company that has a totally not gay Primarch called Lionel Johnson. Incidentally, please stop commenting on that video of mine about the gay bar The Rock. I know. I didn't include it because I couldn't get any pictures and then it slipped my mind. But I know. Characters overall are looking good, and this is an improvement. But maybe a worry if you don't have exactly the right character for the right unit. Will my Jackal Alpha Sniper Biker be a lone operative? Or do they have to get shot unless I buy a dirt bike unit for the Alphas to join? We will know the specifics for individual units once 10th edition is released. Then I'll be able to talk you through the rules for some armies I know and play. There are quite a few of them. Characters should be another great part of 10th edition. Here are 10 more. Have a great day of 40k.